Hello and welcome to the Night Feed. I'm your host, Charlotte, here to bring you some comfort, camaraderie, and conversation and keep you company during, let's face it, one of the toughest parts of being a new parent, the Night Feed. Tonight's unpaid sponsor is Tantrums in Charity Shops. And yes, I'm not just talking about my 2-year-old, I am also talking about myself. We went to the cafe on Saturday near us and we were with my sister, shout out, as I know she listens. So we were in the cafe and I was trying my hardest not to pull out my phone and just put something on for them. I thought, no, I want them to be present. I want to chat with them. And we were having a lovely time. And then they started getting a bit tetchy while we were waiting for the food. So I thought, what I'll do is I'll take my youngest to the charity shop next door, aka the toy shop, and we'll go and pick a little book or, some little card game or something we can play while the food comes. So my little one and I went in, and the first thing she did was took her wellies off and told me the floor was muddy because of her wellies. Then she sat on a children's dressing table, not the stool, the dressing table. And then she proceeded to go and kind of run off and hide from me, whilst I was hot and pregnant and not in the mood for a chase around said charity shop next to a wall of china. So I start to raise my voice a tad. She gets upset. I get upset whilst trying not to make a scene. And we make it out alive, just. And the silver lining is, Jason loved the magnet game we picked up mid-tantrum. How are we all doing this week? I hope you're all well. Whatever you're doing right now, whether you're feeding or whether you're walking in the park or you're doing everything humanly possible to keep your eyes open at 3 a.m, I feel you. I have that third trimester back pain at the moment where I convince myself I'm absolutely fine, able to walk around, able to push the pram with a whole shop on it, able to pick toddlers up and swing them round and generally crack on. And then I'm sat at 8 p.m. like a pensioner with a hot water bottle on my back in pain. But we move, don't we? I'm just having to be mindful that I need to slow down. But on a positive note, on Saturday, I had the bed to myself. And I can't remember the last time this happened. Jason went home to visit his parents. They live about three hours away. And my sister came to stay. He didn't want me to be on my own with the girls this late on, which I was like, no, I'll be fine. I'll crack on. But actually, in hindsight, it was a great help having her there. But the Saturday night, we put the babies down. And my youngest is now in a big girl bed. And usually what happens is about 1 p.m. she'll come in with us, and then my oldest will come in with us at some point. So it's always a full house in the bed. But on Saturday night, they both slept through. And I felt refreshed and rejuvenated. And yeah, as much as I love them being with us, when you're this pregnant, it's nice to have a little bit of space. I had a few emails this week in response to the listener who wrote in feeling overwhelmed and underprepared to have a baby in May. And the consensus amongst other listeners is please do not stress. This is coming with hindsight, remember. So these are all new mums who wrote in and said along the lines of, as long as you and baby are healthy, everything will be okay. Now, I know there are a lot more factors to consider here, but broadly speaking, the advice was to focus on lowering your stress levels. Someone also said to get a list together of the really important things like your hospital bag, bottles of milk, if you're going to bottle feed, nappies, clothes, and obviously baby's bed, wherever they're going to be sleeping. And once you have those things lined up, the chances are you'll feel a whole lot better. And if this makes you feel any better, I'm yet to prepare things for baby, who was also due in May, at the end of May. But it's all good. We'll get there. We will get there. And can I just say, I absolutely love it when other listeners share advice. It really makes me feel like we have a little community, which is just what I wanted. I also had a lovely message on TikTok from a listener called Jennifer who referred to the episode I did last year speaking about the little things, and this was about doing something in the morning after you've been up all night that makes you happy. I think mine was good coffee, and how it gives you a boost to look forward to that when you've had a really difficult night being up however many hours. And she said this inspired her and her husband to get into the routine of getting takeout breakfast. So she said sometimes those greasy breakfast sandwiches hit different after a long, hard night. She said in the early postpartum days, it was nice getting out of the house while her husband had the baby. And I will say, I think I'll be taking a leaf out of Jennifer's book in May when our baby arrives. Although this listener is in the US, and I just feel like our takeaway breakfast options in the UK are McDonald's. Is that? I can't think of anywhere. Am I just being? I don't know, but don't get me wrong, I enjoy a good McDonald's breakfast, but I just wish there was a bit more choice, unless I'm wrong. Manchester Mums, hit me up with any of your breakfast recommendations that I can bring back to the house and enjoy with my feet up. But yeah, I think that's a lovely idea. And I think relating back to the little things that bring you joy as brand new mums, I think it's really important to have those things, even if it is just, I don't know, a nice granola that you really like, or treating yourself to really good coffee, going out for really good coffee and bringing it home, if that you're able to do that. Just little bits of joy throughout your day that keep you going, because, you know, when you are horrendously sleep deprived, you do need a lift. You do need that little lift now and then. I'll still do it if we have a bad night. When I'm out and about in the day, I'll treat myself to a coffee or just a little something to be like, yeah, come on, here's a little treat, keep going. And I think it's easy to deny ourselves of that now and then, but when you've got something like a greasy breakfast sandwich to look forward to in the morning, I reckon it pulls you through those depths of tiredness at 4 a.m. when you haven't slept. So there's a little tip from a listener for you. I have another email here. This says, "Hi Charlotte, long-time listener. I have a 9-month-old and my partner and I want to go away for the night. I have just finished breastfeeding and I'm feeling on the fence about leaving her. How old was your baby when you first left them with someone else overnight? Signed, sleep deprived and in need of a break." I think my oldest was about 1, because that's when I stopped breastfeeding. And we left her with my mum and dad while we had a night away. And it was, in fact, that was the night I stopped breastfeeding, actually. I think I've talked about this before in the podcast. Yeah, my mum and dad had her when she was 1 and she was absolutely fine. And yeah, it's amazing. We too were looking forward to a little bit of time together. A night's sleep is really important. So yeah, I would encourage you to do it. I think it does you so much good. I know some people aren't up for leaving their babies, and that's completely fine. It's your choice. My girls are luckily really close to my mum and dad, so you know, I didn't worry about leaving them. It was actually really comforting to know they were there. And the next day, she wasn't interested in breastfeeding, and it was kind of like, right, okay. I was also pregnant with my second then, so that my milk supply was dropping anyway. But yeah, it was fine. We had a great time. And if you have someone like your parents or, you know, someone close to you that you really trust, then it makes it a lot nicer and easier. You know, you're not on pins the whole time thinking, oh my God, are they okay? You know, it's nice to know that they're being looked after, and that time is important for you to fill your cup back up. You know, you can't give an empty cup. And I think you come back feeling refreshed. You're so excited to see them and be with them. And you and your partner have had that time to bond again and connect and talk, really, because, you know, as a parent, gosh, it's not until you sit down at like 8:30, 9 that you can actually have a proper chat. So yeah, I would say if you're comfortable and you're happy to, then do it, because it did us the world of good. And it still does. My mum and dad are great. They'll have them now and then, sometimes for the weekend even. And you can't underestimate how good that time is for you to just recharge your batteries and just have a little bit of downtime. So yeah, I hope that helps. Then I found this post in a forum. It's just a funny one. And it's called My Baby, the Avocado. It says the important background to this story is that I have suffered pretty horrible baby in bed nightmares since my baby was born. I would go to sleep and wake up convinced that I had fallen asleep in bed while holding my baby. I would madly search for my baby under the covers of my doona and my pillows while half asleep, before waking up enough to realise the baby was in fact safely asleep in their cot next to our bed. These nightmares started fading with time, and as I started getting a bit more sleep, until the other night when I woke once again in absolute bone-chilling dread, realising I'd fallen asleep with my baby in the bed. Only this time, not only had I fallen asleep with my baby in the bed, but I was even more terrible because my baby was a fragile avocado and he was going to get bruised and squashed in bed. I frantically searched through our bedding, but I had to be so much more careful because, my baby was a tiny avocado, which is hard to find in thick bedding. Of course, once again, I searched and I woke up enough to realise that my baby is not, in fact, an avocado. My baby was safely asleep in their cot, thankfully oblivious to the fact that their parent was having a delusional waking nightmare about them being a soft piece of fruit. Sleep deprivation is wild, my friends. Look after yourselves and your little avocados. I just thought that was quite funny. Who hasn't had one of them dreams? I remember waking up with my arms on my chest as if I was holding her and then looking down and there was no baby. And I was like, oh my God, where is she? And I did that as well, like several nights that happened to me, looking through pillows, covers, and then turning around to see her fast asleep in a little crib. So yeah, I think we've all been there, haven't we? Maybe you haven't, but gosh, the harrowing when you do that and your whole body just drains of blood. It's just the most horrible feeling. But I've never had the avocado one. But if you've had a crazy one like that, write it in, email me, thenightviewpodcast@gmail.com. I love a little funny little story like that. Next tonight is What's Trending. Now, there has been a very interesting episode recently dropped on the Stephen Bartlett podcast, Diary of a CEO. It's with Erica Commissar, who is a child attachment expert. And I listened to this because I was speaking to my friend about it. She listened to it and recommended it. And then I've also seen clips from this interview like all over TikTok, little snippets. You might have seen it yourself. She talks about the importance of young children being with their primary caregiver until the age of 3. So she is against daycare. And she gives her reasons that are research backed and actually very interesting. So it is worth a listen. It's a big time investment. I think it's about 2 hours, but some of the points she raised were quite eye-opening, and it's caused, as you can imagine, quite the divide, especially in the comments on any of these clips on TikTok. And mainly this is because society is no longer set up the way it was, is it? I think the stat now is that 6 out of 10 mothers are the breadwinner in the family. And she was saying a lot of her clients decide they want to stay with their kids after building careers and after having their babies. They think, no, I want to be at home with the baby now. But their husbands won't support the move because they'd made arrangement pre-kids. They'd made arrangements. They took out mortgages and finance, and they've made arrangements based on the wife's wage and salary. And it's a really, really tricky one because I think there are 3 camps. I think there are mums who are happy to stay at home and build their home life and finances and work in a way that makes this possible, like myself. Then there are those who build careers they are really proud of, but become mothers and just want to be with their kids and want to be at home. And then there are those who love their careers and are happy to return to work. And I don't think any camp is wrong. I just think it's the modern day dilemma that us mums face. And 60 years ago, it was black and white. Now it's absolutely not. And she does give some ways in which you can change your situation if that is something you want to do. She also empathizes with the fact that, like I said, society is built different. And she said there is a mental health crisis in kids now that she saw coming 30 years ago. And she said it's not because of social media, it's because of the fact that women were told they can do it all. And it's a hard truth in a way that it is no longer possible for everyone to be with their kids. And like I said, not everybody wants that. Some people are happy to return to their careers because they love their job. And that is what makes them happy. But then there are other people who, like I said, become mothers. And I think I've spoken about this on the podcast and earlier. And they get to that point and they think, I want to be at home with my baby, but it's no longer possible. Now, this Erica, he quizzed her on her situation because he was like, well, obviously you're a very successful career woman. How did you do it? You know, obviously you've worked and had kids. So she said in her 20s, she built up her profession as a psychiatrist, I believe. And then when she had kids in her 30s, she then scaled right back to 1 hour a day. So she would have one client a day for an hour and was able to fit in childcare for that hour and then be with her kids the rest of the time. And she said, my husband and I, we had to really compromise. She said we weren't going on the holidays our friends were going on. We weren't driving the fancy cars our friends were driving. I think she might have said they downsized when they had kids. She said we really compromised on a lot because she always knew she wanted to put them, I'm not going to say put them first because I think everyone puts their kids first. I think she wanted to be with them basically. And that was coming from her background as a child attachment expert. And she was just saying how in this society, we're kind of primed to want everything now. And we're kind of primed to want the big house and want the big car and want the flash holidays. And I think social media in that respect plays a huge part in that. It's all about keeping up with the Joneses for some people. And it's hard to build a life on a certain amount of income between two people, then have kids and go, oh my gosh, I don't want to go back to work. And I think that is a dilemma that a lot of women and men are facing at the moment. And it's how to do it. So as I said, she does discuss a few ways in which you can change your situation, whether that is finding work that is more adaptable around the children, whether that is scaling back economically. I have seen a few TikToks lately of mothers who have said, we've downsized, we've cut back, I'm no longer work, and these are the sacrifices we've made. And another factor of this, I think, is our generation. I'm talking like women in their 30s now. It was almost, I don't want to say frowned upon, but it was almost like, no, you have to go to work. You know, you don't want to just stay at home. You don't want to just be a housewife. And I think there's a big shift happening there now, because when I was at uni, it was always like, well, I'm going to have a career and I'm going to, earn and be able to afford things. And I never really, in my very early 20s, thought about, but then you'll have to take maternity leave and then childcare. And I think it's only when you get to near a child rearing age that you go, actually, you get a year off and then you have to go back to work. And for me, personally, in my gut, I always would have struggled with that. I knew when I kind of hit about 27, seeing mums come back from maternity leave, I thought, I want to be off with my children. And again, I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong. This is just my personal stance. I just always knew I wanted to be with them while they were young. So that's why I adapted my business and became self-employed so that I could be in that situation. And like I said, it's not possible for everybody else. And some people absolutely love their careers. So it's just a real kind of moral dilemma where there's always going to be a few sides to the argument. So yeah, I'd love to know if you've listened to it, what your thoughts are. I know so many people wrote in about the let them theory with Mel Robbins. Gosh, that has changed a lot of your lives, and it's super, super highly recommended. But yeah, if anyone's listened to this podcast, or if anybody has any thoughts on it, if there are any psychiatrists or child attachment experts listening, I think it'd be really good to hear your advice. Because the last thing I wanted, with bringing this up is for anyone to feel any sort of way. I think if you're happy with your situation, brilliant, because I know plenty of people that are happy to be at home, and I know plenty of people that love their work. And I think it's just finding what's right for you and your family. These were just her kind of theories and research on children up to the age of 3 and what she believes is right and wrong, basically. So it is worth a listen if this is a topic that interests you. My self-care tip tonight is to get yourself some blackout blinds. We have got lighter mornings, and up until about 2 weeks ago, my girls were sleeping in till 7:45. I was having to set an alarm for school. But recently it's been 6:30/6/7, which is a reasonable hour. It's not 5, but long-time listeners will remember Tinfoilgate from last year, and this was when they started waking up at 5 when the mornings became lighter, and I was at the my wit's end. I can't do 5 a.m. I just can't. So I tinfoiled the windows because I was like, I need a quick fix. And then with our blind, I think I stuffed blankets around it, because even though these blinds are sold as blackout blinds, they're not, are they? The light comes in through the cracks. So as a self-care solution, get yourself a good blackout blind if you are struggling with early wakings in babies and toddlers. I'm going to get one for their room from Blinds to Go, and it's like a pressure fit blind which goes all the way around the edge, and then there's no cracks of light coming through. And I'm going to see if that helps, because they need the sleep, we need our sleep, and the mornings are only going to get lighter. And if you want a good night's sleep and you don't want to be woken at the crack of dawn, I would highly recommend a good blackout blind. Finally, to finish on a quote I wrote: "You have an hour, 2 at best, while the baby naps. Get up. What are you doing sitting down? There's dishes in the sink. The washer finished over 2 hours ago. It'll be starting to smell. You didn't fold the clean washing yesterday. You can't leave it another day. And about the shower, are you really going to let it get that bad? You said you were going to clean the pram today too, and are you ever going to get round to posting that letter? What about the online food shop? If you want it delivered tomorrow, you better hurry. Oh, but before you get started on that, you need to call your nan. It's been over a week. The floor needs hoovering. What are you doing still sat down? The mental load is real. You're not lazy. You need that time sometimes just to restore before nap time is over. Be kind to yourself." Thanks for listening this evening. Thank you, as always, for your emails, for your messages. Love hearing from you. If you can remember to rate and subscribe wherever you listen, that always really helps me. And yeah, if you have any queries, any questions, any dilemmas, please keep them coming in, and I will happily read them out and give as much advice as I can. My email is nightviewpodcast@gmail.com. Wishing you all a restful, relaxing night ahead. Good night.